Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and today I'm coming to you with episode 3 of my top 25 guns of my collection. And the reason I'm doing 25 and not just 5 is people always ask me, Jason, what are the top 5 guns of your collection? The most expensive or your favorite? And I just can't narrow it down to 5, so I decided to do a top 5 of top 5s. And I'm going through them in no particular order, but I am going through them in categories. So my very first video, we talk about my piston-driven rifles. Then we talk about my favorite concealed carry guns, the ones that I personally carry. And today we're going to be talking about my retro rifle builds. And maybe not all of these are necessarily retro, but most of them are. Now, if you've been following my channel for any length of time, you know that there are 2 types of guns that really pique my interests, and those are clone rifles and pistol caliber carbines. So as I mentioned, we're going to go through my clone rifles today. Now this is also a video that I'm kind of begrudgingly making, simply because when it comes to the world of clone rifles, there's a lot of people out there that I jokingly refer to as clone clowns. People that will nitpick every clone rifle that they see. They might not even own a clone rifle. However, because they've seen a couple of videos on certain firearms from various YouTubers, they think that they know everything. And maybe it's a little bit of jealousy, maybe it's a little bit of envy. I've always been perplexed by it. And even people that will nitpick my clone rifles, I'll go to their social media accounts and they have nothing close to these. They'll say, your Mk18 is all incorrect. But then I go to their social media, their YouTube channel, their Instagram, and they have a Mk18, essentially something that kind of looks like a Mk18, but nothing is right, and they even fully admit it. But as I said, I'm kind of begrudgingly making this one because inevitably I'll get people that nitpick every rifle to death. But let's go ahead and dive into my favorite 5 clone rifles in my collection. And these are not just the 5 that I own a few more, but these are the ones that I think interest me the most. And we're going to start off today with this one right here. You guys can tell this is a clone of a M16A1. Now this particular one is made by Colt, or it was made under license by Colt by U.S. Ordnance. So let's go over this. I love the look of that triangle handguard. It is finished in that dark gray anodization, not a black anodization. I have a Colt 20-round magazine like they used to come with back in the Vietnam era. A1 grip, A1 length stock, A1 upper. And the complaints many people have with this is when Colt authorized U.S. Ordnance to make these and put on all of their markings and make it for them, is that I think these were kind of expensive. I know there's a few videos out there where people nitpick these things to death. But I think it comes out of more of jealousy and envy, because when these came out, Brownells was coming out with their M16A1 clones as well. And those are really nice rifles, but they're very affordable because they use a lot of aftermarket products that are already available. But I really feel like this is a very nice clone. Yes, it's a little bit expensive for what it is. I actually got it on a pretty darn good deal. Oh, I should also mention this does use the original pencil barrel and 1 in 12 twist barrel, which is really hard to find. That was the original twist rate of these barrels. They later went to 1 in 7, as you probably know, for the U.S. military in the 1980s to stabilize different bullet weights. But for me, this is just a really cool gun to have in the collection. It has the right markings on the receiver because it is licensed by Colt, the triangle handguards. And this for me is the definitive M16. When I think of an M16, this is what I look for. You've seen all those images from the Vietnam era. And holding this is really cool because it is so light. And then you begin to realize how far we've come from the original intent of the M16. And speaking of deviating from the original intent of the M16, we have the FN Military Collector's Edition M16A4. Now this is the modern version of the M16 that I believe is still carried by the U.S. Marine Corps, even though most of the branches now use variations of the M4, the Marines still, being riflemen and women, want something with a 20-inch barrel. So in some applications they still use this. This has the modern Knights Armament rail, which it is my understanding that they now use P&S Products rails, which are exact copies of these. And that had to do with the cost of the contract. The lower receiver is marked with FN. Now, some complaints with this is that this is not a perfect FN upper receiver because it's not made in the same factory and it does not have all the exact markings, but they can't put those on this because of the contract with the US military. The technical data package is what it is referred to. However, you can occasionally find some of those upper receivers in surplus. In fact, I even own one of those that I put on a different lower receiver. So you can find authentic military M16A4 uppers, but I wanted to keep this one all the same because it was all part of the original package. It has the UID tag on it. It has the proper rear sights, the Maytac rear sight, A2 grip, A2 stock on it. Has a modern magazine. This one is just really, really cool. Kind of big, kind of heavy, and I think for maybe the modern battlefield, it might be a little bit too much, but I understand why the Marine Corps, being such the traditionalists that they are, like that. So that's my M16A4 made by FN. The next rifle I'm going to show you is another retro rifle, and one that I assembled and built myself. Now this rifle is a clone of a Colt 630. Now before somebody in the comment section goes off and tells me that is the wrong barrel length for this rifle because it's supposed to be 10 inches or 10.5 inches and this muzzle device is supposed to be mounted all the way up here at the front sight base, please go and research the Colt Model 630. This was not a rifle that was used by the US Army, and those early commanders are very popular to reproduce and they are very popular in pop culture. However, the US Air Force had different requirements for their commando. They wanted an 11.5-inch barrel and they did not want a forward assist. As you guys know, the Air Force never thought the forward assist was needed. They were in line with the thinking of Eugene Stoner. So after the Brownells retro line was kind of discontinued, you could still buy various parts in the aftermarket. Well, I had ended up collecting a few of these parts and I looked at what I had and I thought to myself, well, what kind of rifle could I build with these? What direction could I go with them? And based off of my research, what I found and what I had available, I found the Colt Model 630, a very rare variant of the early M16s, AR-15s, and M4s. And I was able to produce this rifle. Now, this does have an 11.5-inch barrel. It is in 1-in-7 twist. Now, the originals had 1-in-12 twist, just like the M16A1. However, in the 1980s, when the military did switch over to the M16A2, they actually rebarreled some of their 630s in 1-in-7 twist. So this is still clone correct, and the US Air Force did use variations of this rifle all the way up until Operation Desert Storm. I also have on the original style A1 flat delta ring. We have an A1 upper receiver. The lower receiver is a Brownells. I also have a Brownells waffle mag in it. We also have the A1 grip in it, and we have an early version of the Car 15 stock. Now this one is made of polymer. The original ones were aluminum. You can get aluminum ones today. However, I decided to go with this one to keep the gun all Brownells. So this is as though Brownells would have offered a Model 630, but they didn't. But I was able to create the gun as though that they did. The optic on this is one of the retro 4x20 scopes, which is a copy of the original Vietnam era Colt scopes. It's made in the same factory in Japan to the same specifications. Something else I was able to recently find for this rifle is the correct bolt carrier. You'll notice this is chrome plated, and you'll also notice this carrier does not have the serrations for the forward assist. And this is a Brownells exclusive part. So this is just like the bolt carriers were back in the Vietnam era. So I really tried to go out of my way and create a 630 clone. And once again, as I'm asking you, if you are a fan of these retro rifles and know the early commando rifles, before you tell me about barrel length and how this is wrong, please go look up the Colt Model 630. I might even put a link in the description below where you guys can go do your own research and see that this is the correct configuration for this rifle. The only thing on this rifle that would not be correct is I did use a Colt 601 style charging handle. Let's see if I can get that into focus there, right here. So this is the older style. So I just thought that would be cool to have on a rifle of this era. They would have used more of a modern charging handle, but I just like the look of that one. So I fully admit that is not correct on this one. So this is my clone of a Colt 630. The next rifle I want to show you is another Air Force clone rifle, and this is of the GAU-5 Aircrew service weapon. Oh, that also reminds me, on this previous rifle I just showed you, the Air Force also refers to this as the GU-5A-A. So it's kind of a weird name, but that's what this is in their nomenclature. The next rifle is one that I have to assemble here for you. This is the GAU-5 Aircrew service weapon. And the idea of this rifle, which was recently adopted by the Air Force, was to create an AR-15 or M4 platform that could be stowed away in an ejection seat of a fighter plane. And it gives them more firepower than the previous survival rifles like the AR-7, the M6, and the AR-5. So they created a rifle with a detachable barrel. Now this uses the Cry Havoc detachable barrel system, which you can buy. And so essentially, let me put this thing together here. I'll go ahead and pull the charging handle back, lock the bolt open. You can put on the barrel portion. It latches on just like that. It also has a folding pistol grip as well, so that helps stow it away in the ejection seat. The stock is not folding, however, I have created another version of this rifle where I do use a folding stock on the AR-15, so you can get the detachable barrel, the folding stock, and the folding grip. The magazine they also use is a standard mil-spec tan one with the light blue follower. So this is a military contract magazine. So although it does not match the finish of the rest of the rifle, this is actually correct based off of the pictures that I have found. Another thing that makes this rifle clone correct is the handguard. Now this is a Midwest Industries handguard. Now, technically, this is a version 1 or a Gen 1 of this rail. The only thing different between the Gen 1 and the Gen 3 is that the Gen 3 has a little piece that goes right here to prevent over-tightening of the screws, and I actually was able to find that piece. So I turned the Gen 1 handguard into a Gen 3. Now, there is a Gen 4 that they currently make, which has a different front end. It doesn't have these sling swivels up here in the front, and it's a little bit more slanted. So if you want to clone this rifle, you will be very hard-pressed to find this handguard. It was made in very limited numbers, and it has been discontinued. And I even contacted Midwest Industries, and they said they are not making them and have no plans of making them ever again. So I feel very fortunate in getting this. So this is my clone of the Air Force GAU-5 Aircrew service weapon, which of course can be taken apart and designed to be stowed away in an ejection seat. So that is a really cool rifle that I like having. And then my last one, I know some people are going to say, hey, you're leaving out one of your clones that we all know and love. However, I will tell you I'm saving that one for another video. But the rifle I chose for today's video is a Mk18 Mod 0. So this is a pretty darn clone correct Mk18 Mod 0. As you can see, I even have the correct laser engraving. The Mk18 was a close quarters combat carbine that was designed by Crane, which is a naval air station, and they do a lot of these special weapons designs. And this was used by the United States Navy, 10.3 inch barrel, not a 10.5 inch barrel. A lot of times when people clone Mark 18s, they go with the wrong barrel length. Has a Knights Armament NT4 flash suppressor. It did use the A-pillar front sight. We have the Knights Armament rail, the CQD sling attachment point right here. This is a cage code marked 13629 upper receiver from Colt. The lower receiver is a M4 marked lower receiver, so that's all Colt. It has a Colt's part kit in it, as well as a Geisley Super semi-automatic trigger, which was one of the upgrades that they put on. And then we have the SOCOM stock on it. This was also designed by Crane, but has been made in the aftermarket by LMT and B5 Industries, as well as having the correct LMT rear sight. And these were designed from LMT and other people when they wanted to have a rear sight but also be able to put it onto a piece of rail. They just cut down some of those old full-length carry handles, but this one was made by LMT to be correct, so they used that on the program. I also have the correct CQD sling swivel here in the back, that plate right there. And a lot of the Mark 18 Mod Zeros did use an A1 grip, so I was able to find one of those and use that as well. So these are my top 5 favorite clone rifles, and yes, there is one that I left out that everyone knows and loves, but I'm saving that for another video. So what do you guys think? Do you like my clone rifles? I know not all of them are perfect, and some people have issues with certain ones, and they're gonna tell me, go watch a certain YouTuber. But trust me, I've already seen it. I love the rifles that I have. I have no regrets in how I've built them, set them up, or the ones that I have bought. So you're not gonna change my mind. Please don't be a clone clown. And this is one of the reasons why I never post on clone rifle forums. I don't really join any of the clone rifle Facebook groups, and I don't really make a lot of videos about clone rifles because there's just too many people out there that are know-it-alls and like to nitpick everything, and it might come from jealousy or misinformation because they've seen one YouTube video by one other YouTuber that makes a video on the subject that they like. But these are the ones that I like to shoot. These are the ones that I like to own. And I'm so glad that I have these in my collection. So what do you guys think? Are you guys fan of clone rifles? And this is guns number 15 through 11 in my top 25 video series. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching.